No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. And for all those listening on our YouTube channel and our social media platforms, good evening, universe. I'm Ezra Ginsburg. We're here to break down the Jets' 5-0 loss to the Florida Panthers. The Jets are on a losing streak. A lot of people didn't think it was going to happen, but the Jets are on a 2-game losing streak. And without further ado, it's not Drew Mandel. It's not Dave Manouk joining me as the host. It's Liz Hood, who's joining us for the first time. This is historic. First time ever on the Illegal Curve post-game show. The first time, by the way, that we've ever had a woman on the IC post-game show. I mentioned that on this morning's show. So Liz, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you pinch hitting for us as Drew and Dave are out gallivanting. So how's it going? How does it feel to be on your first Illegal Curve post-game show?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. I have my room full of hats. I have a hat sitting on the floor. I was like, I can do my best Dave Manouk impression. You can put the hat on backwards here and pretend I'm like a regular here, but super fired up to be here. And we have lots to talk about today, unfortunately. So
yeah, we have a lot to talk about. And yeah, John, Drew and Dave, I'm not really sure. Dave's at his significant other's holiday party. I'm not sure where Drew is. He might just be at Rumors. He has to spend some late nights sometimes at Rumors, or he might be out at a concert or something. I'm not quite sure. But Liz stepped in. So we don't really care about Drew and Dave at this point. We got Ezzy, we got Liz, and this is IC history. And we should mention Liz does an amazing job with Connor Harabchak and sometimes Jacob Stoller with the Winnipeg Sports Talk Sunday Live, and also with the Winnipeg Sports Talk Deep Dive. I watched that this afternoon. You guys did an awesome job. I know that you guys usually focus on players, but with the red hot power play at, well, I guess it's going to be a little bit less than, what was it at, 41 or 42%? They only had two opportunities. There weren't a lot of power plays for either team tonight, even though the penalty march was crazy at the end of that game with Nemesnikov after that kind of reverse hit from Jesper Boquist. But yeah, you guys did a great job on the most recent deep dive. So go check that out on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. And yeah, I'm just excited to break down this game, even though it's a loss and some fans are a little bit upset, but I don't think they're going to be too upset, Liz. The Jets are still 15-3.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you take it all in stride. And I think these games, while you don't want to see your team lose 5-0 ever, these are good times to learn about what these losses look like and what your team is doing wrong and stuff like that. So obviously there's no need to kind of call 911 or ring any alarms or anything like that yet, but it's a good kind of learning curve. And, they have 2 days off now, which they haven't had a lot of rest in the last couple of weeks or anything like that. So there's definitely some time to regroup, and they get to look for their own sense of vindication on Tuesday, right? Not very often do you get to play a stinker against a team and then look to make up for it in such a short period of time afterwards. So they definitely have some time, and I'm assuming we'll see them come out on Tuesday with a little bit more of a jump in their step.
Absolutely. And, we're going to get into the goal by goal recap in the Play Now game recap. But, just looking at this game, I mean, it was ugly from not start to finish, but there was a lot not to like in this game. I mean, the Jets did not generate a lot of offense in any of the periods. I had to double check on Natural Stat Trick. The Jets only had 3 high danger chances all game long. Like, it's like one of those games, Liz, where if you looked at the shots, you would say, oh, this was actually, more even of a game than the 5-0 score would indicate, but it really wasn't. And, you heard this a lot on the broadcast. John Garrett mentioned it several times that, the Jets didn't have a lot of traffic. I just didn't think that the Jets had a lot of sustained pressure. Like, there was, aside from Nikolai Ehlers, who led all players with 5 shots on net, including 3 in the first period, right? He had some grade A scoring chances, but aside from the Nemesnikov Ehlers Perfetti line, like, they're just like, where was the offense tonight? The dangerous offense, I should say.
Yeah, no, I struggled with watching this game because I got to give my flowers to Paul Maurice, because he kind of set this game up in a way that the Winnipeg Jets kind of beat themselves. Florida had a pretty strong forecheck, in my opinion, but then they would back off and almost set up in a strange looking 1-1-3. And they had a huge trap on that blue line that the Winnipeg Jets could not for the life of them penetrate. And it was really strange because oftentimes when you see teams playing such a conservative defensive system, they're not forechecking super well. But the minute the Winnipeg Jets gained possession of the puck, Florida backed off, and it was like, okay, there's a little bit more room to break up the ice. Hayden Fleury, for example, I think had a couple of good stretch passes because there was a little bit more room in that D zone. But then the minute they were on their way through into the offensive zone, the puck died, and it was, oh my gosh, it was giving flashes of some COVID Jets hockey that I was not super thrilled to see.
Yeah, and I thought, like, and I hate to single out one D pair or one forward line or anything like that, but like Neil Pionk and Dylan Sandberg have been like the poster childs for consistency this year, right? Like along with there's a lot of examples. I mean, the top pair of Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello as well. I mean, like sometimes you have to just say that this was an example. If you have forgotten how dominant of a player Alex Barkov is, right? Like that top line with Barkov, Reinhart, and Evan Rodriguez. This game, that line was so good that you barely noticed Matthew Tkachuk out there tonight, right? Like,
right?
I didn't. Yeah. I can't remember any high quality scoring chance or any shot on net. Even I'd have to check the box score to see if Tkachuk even had a shot on net. But that top Barkov line was so good tonight. And Morrissey and DeMello had a lot of problems with them. I thought Sandberg and Pionk, we'll get into the goals. I think it was I forget if it was the third goal or the fourth goal where Sandberg coughed up the puck. But that pair I thought had a lot of trouble tonight. And just overall, I thought, the Jets were, too slow, giving the Panthers the blue line too much. Just not as sharp as we've become accustomed to seeing this team, right? And that's a credit to the Panthers, right? They lost those 2 games to the Devils, so they were desperate. They needed to have a strong bounce back on home ice. But I agree with you that the Jets were, it wasn't the high pressure forechecking team that we've seen. Aside from Ehlers, the Jets look slow, and they're going to have to make some adjustments here because the Panthers really took it to them tonight. Like that game was not close at all.
No, and I think, sometimes when I'm doing, whether it's, like a post-game show and wanting to talk about specific things or wanting to diagnose what's wrong with a team or something, you want to go like so specific and, use technical terms sometimes. But like you said, the Jets were slow in this game. Like the 50-50 puck battle was non-existent. There were a couple times that even, Rasmus Kapari, for example, I thought had a bit of a rougher looking game. And usually he's the type of guy, him and Morgan Barron both in particular, are so good at jumping on those. A couple of comments I saw people mention that the forecheck was basically non-existent tonight. The Winnipeg Jets almost looked like they weren't even trying on a couple of those pucks. And I would never say that about a professional hockey team, but it was not their best in terms of jumping on those chaotic chances by any means.
Shout out to Avery. Obviously, we know that Avery's here for Liss because she's asking who's here for Liss Hood. So obviously, is it Hood or Hood? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right.
It's Hood, but okay.
You know what? I've heard it pronounced a million ways. So, and theoretically, it's French, so you could call it Hood if you wanted to. So, but I say Hood. So.
Well, I don't know if you know this. I have a French immersion diploma, so je parle français. Okay, so from Kelvin High School.
Both.
Yeah, there we go. So I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right because my daughter's name is Ariella and she gets Ariella all the time. And my sister's name is Gillian with a hard G and she gets Jillian all the time. So I'm very careful.
If I ever saw Gillian, I know a couple of Jillians spelled with a G and I would never call them Gillian. So that's good to know. Next time I run into your sister.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's the only Gillian. I've never met another Gillian, but I don't think I've talked about my sister as much as I've ever talked about her on tonight's post-game show. So Gil, you're getting a nice little shout out on the show. There's no way she's watching. She's probably in bed now. She goes to bed fairly early, but we got interim coach saying bonjour. So, we'll maybe incorporate a little French into tonight's show if you want, Liz.
We can talk about, French Winnipeg Jets. I have to chat with Radio Canada pretty frequently because it doesn't seem like there's a ton of French coverage for the Jets in this province. So
no,
careful because they'll hear you and they'll be calling. They'll come calling.
Absolutely,
weekly.
There should be more as far as I'm concerned.
So bring back Pierre-Luc Dubois. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, I think he's actually working at Home Depot tonight. So. And he's still looking for his second goal with the Washington Capitals. But we actually had Stephen Wino on this morning's show, and he was talking about Dubois, and he's saying he's actually hasn't played that bad. Like his shooting percentage is like, I don't know, 7% or something, like just something ridiculous. But we digress. Let's get back to the Jets Panthers game here. Just talking about going back to that idea of the Jets looking slow and against the Lightning too. Like I don't know, is the schedule catching up to them? I know you'll never hear that you'll certainly never hear that from any of the players or the coaching staff, but I don't know what it was tonight. But like, you made a good point when you were talking about, the Panthers seemed to just kind of slow the game down a little bit for the Jets, and the Jets weren't able to ever counterattack or kind of adjust to that. And we just didn't see, like, it wasn't the normal Jets team that you saw. And we have to remind ourselves, this is the defending Stanley Cup champions, right? Like, it's not like this Panthers team is a weak team or anything like that. I believe they're only, I think they're still first in the Atlantic, or if they're not first in the Atlantic, they're close to first in the Atlantic. So like, you have to give them credit for that. But and on the 5 goals, like, Hellebuck had no chance on any of these. Like, they were just, like, when you talk about, the first goal that was scored, I mean, that goes off of Samskovich's, like, it's shot off of him. On the second goal, the Nate Schmidt goal, he just comes in off the blue line, and he's kind of Johnny on the spot. Obviously, the Evan Rodriguez goal, that's just a hack and whack in front of Hellebuck, right? Like, there were actually 5, I counted, there were 5 Jets back. And, Evan Rodriguez it was, I think, Kyle Connor who just couldn't get a stick on him. So, I mean, was it effortless? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to break this down. Can you just say, like, this was a more desperate team, a good team beating a team that wasn't prepared? Like, I'm not sure how you kind of sum this one up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one thing, though, I will say, before the show started, I saw a couple comments like, hey, what do you think of these last 2 losses? And I think these are very different losses. I think, last game, the Winnipeg Jets, and you guys spoke about it pretty extensively, like, it was just not their game. They were not sharp. There was a lot of issues, and Tampa capitalized on the chances that the Winnipeg Jets created, those erroneous plays that were not forced. Today was a different game. This looked like a team that had the book on the Winnipeg Jets, in my opinion. And while Paul Maurice has been gone for a while, and there has been some coaching turnover since his departure, a lot of these players are still the same. Nikolai Ehlers is still Nikolai Ehlers. Mark Scheifele is still Mark Scheifele. And the Winnipeg Jets, in general, struggle with 5-on-5 zone entries, like, with a team set up in a nice trap or anything like that. Like, the Winnipeg Jets, we see their best hockey when there's a little bit of chaos and their quick players are allowed to jump on those pucks, get those on-man rushes, capitalize there. That's the type of hockey that, Winnipeg does a better job when they get to play. Colorado didn't let that happen in the playoffs last year. And, that was another team that had the book on the Jets. And that's what I saw tonight. This is Florida Panthers team. I don't watch enough Florida Panthers to know how they play every single game, but I would venture to say the whole concept of the 1-1-3 that I mentioned earlier, like, it's very, very rare. I haven't seen a lot of that this year. I haven't seen a lot of it ever. And it's not a full system. They did have some forechecking guys up there, but the 3 guys at the back with no reinforcement defensemen behind them made it look like they just knew that trap was going to be that effective. And that if there was the off chance that some guy bleeds through, that Sergei Bobrovsky can take a perimeter shot and all will be well. This looked like a hockey team that knew exactly who their opponent was tonight. And, credit to the Florida Panthers fans that were in the arena tonight that started the overrated chant. They made the Winnipeg Jets look that way.
Yeah, there was also did you also hear there was the whistling in the like, throughout the game? There was somebody whistling. Like, it was loud whistling throughout the third period. Maybe some people in the chat will back me up. Maybe I was hearing things. Maybe I was hallucinating, Liz. But I think, going back to what you said about 1-1-3, not to be confused with today in your deep dive when you were talking about the power play, the 1-3-1. For those who we don't want to get too technical here, but basically what you're talking about is you've got you've got 2 forwards layered, and then you've got your 2 defensemen, and then a forward's kind of, without getting too into it, you've basically got kind of like it's more of kind of like a passive back check, or just
absolutely,
like you said, a trap, like kind of like a trap is the best way to kind of describe it. And to your point, that's a good way of slowing a fast team down, and also kind of making it really hard to get anything generated through the neutral zone, right? And you're absolutely right. Like, and the Jets didn't have a lot going on in terms of extended zone time. So what was happening was then the Florida Panthers would come right back. It was easy for them to gain the zone, not necessarily with speed, because it looked easy at times for the Panthers to gain the zone. And this ended up being a game where there was a lot of traffic and just point shots. And, we talked about it on the third goal. I think that was the third goal by Evan Rodriguez. Like, that was literally just, Ekblad taking a point shot, and you had Barkov and Rodriguez in front of Hellebuck there, just whacking away with Morrissey and DeMello and Connor. It was the Scheifele line that was out there. So yeah, this was not the type of game that we've become accustomed to. And I know a lot of people are talking about, the Jets aren't physical enough, or, they're too small or anything like that. Like, I mean, I think, look, it's different when you're talking about the Jets versus the entire league, vis-a-vis, the Jets versus the Florida Panthers, because a lot of teams haven't matched up well against the Florida Panthers, right? Like, they've kind of got it all. They've got the tenacity and the size, and they've also got a lot of skill and speed, right? Like, to me, like, a guy that kind of, exemplifies the Panthers that nobody talks about, because obviously it's Barkov and Tkachuk and Reinhart and Verhaeghe that people talk about a lot. But like a guy like Anton Lundell, like, he was very noticeable, right? Like, taking a couple spots after Cole Perfetti in the 2020 draft. Like, Anton Lundell's a heck of a hockey player. Like, he's not a superstar. He's like a 35, 40 point guy, but he's just a good third line guy and does his job. And I think sometimes you have to just say that the Panthers were the hungrier team. Like, that's literally kind of what I saw tonight. And the Jets just weren't sharp, like, in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And it's kind of, like, I was thinking before this game even started, right? Obviously the loss last game. And I was kind of wondering, it was like, at what point, because there's so much, it would take a very long losing streak for the Winnipeg Jets to, sink down to the level of concern record wise. But at what point, because, 2 games in a row is, when you lose 2 consecutive games, you want to look and kind of see what went wrong and everything. But then a lot of people can take a step back, us included, and be like, well, they're still 15-3, and it's at what point is the record, like, I don't think this Winnipeg Jets team is lucky in any capacity. I do think they have a lot of really, really skilled players. And, you've talked about it extensively. So have I, about why we think this team is very strong. But the record aside, like, these 2 games were 2 poor performances from the Winnipeg Jets, to put it frankly. Like, that's just what we saw. And while that's not necessarily reason for concern, I'm not one of those people sitting there screaming about how poor they are in the playoffs, or, how small they are, that they're too soft or anything like that. That's not how I roll, and that's not how I see it. No. But it is important to look at what did go wrong and kind of discuss what was in the Jets' control to manage that, and also how agile they can be to adjust when they inevitably face good teams, because there are 31 good hockey teams in the NHL on any given night.
Exactly. And a perfect example, like, this game was already 5-0. It was over when Pionk had the hip check on Boquist. Were you okay with that hit, by the way? Like I know
loved it. Nothing wrong with that. So clean. Yes. No head contact whatsoever.
I agree. Yep.
Guy had the puck. No problem with that.
Yeah, and it happens that, he catches him in the leg or like the lower body, but he's got the puck. So I agree with you. It was a clean hit. And it's funny because Pionk was looking over there and kind of looking at the Panthers, kind of like giving the look like, that was a clean hit. Like, what's wrong here? Like, there was nothing dirty about that. And then they started to go after him the next shift, which I thought was kind of funny. And then you saw the Nemesnikov and Boquist go at it after we talked about the Boquist reverse hit, which, some people have. I didn't have a problem with that, and he didn't get a penalty on that play either. So to your point, and also, Liz, the Scheifele Ekblad fight, like, that fight has absolutely no impact on the game at all. Like, that's just 2 frustrated guys. That's just Scheifele frustrated because he knows this team's going to lose his 2nd game in a row, right? So to your point, like, you can't say that, the Jets are, soft or anything like that. Like, they have guys that can mix it up. Adam Lowry can drop the gloves. Dylan Sandberg can handle himself. When Logan Stanley's in the lineup, he's a guy that, is formidable. So I don't think it's that. I think the Florida Panthers kind of beat the Jets at their own game, right? Like, the Florida Panthers took it to the Jets. And we haven't seen a team, I think, maybe with the exception of that Leafs game, we haven't seen, or maybe Colorado, in that Colorado game, we haven't seen a team kind of dominate the Jets kind of, from through 3 periods. Like, it wasn't, obviously the second period, the Panthers had 3 goals, but it was a 60-minute kind of smackdown from the Panthers tonight.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm curious to hear. I'm just scrolling through the chat right now to see the reaction to the reverse hit and whatnot, because I don't think it's necessarily like, it's not dirty, it's whatever. But by the definition of interference, he hit the guy who doesn't have the puck. Like, I
Sure.
don't understand how that's allowed. Like, it's not, again, I'm not sitting here like, old man screams at cloud about it or anything like that. But it's like, I just don't really understand how reverse hits are allowed, because they're kind of dangerous if they're gone about the wrong way. And you can't hit guys who don't have the puck. So how is that allowed?
It's true. Well, and it's funny because John Garrett on the broadcast, I'm sure you heard it, he thought that Boquist was getting a penalty. Nemesnikov, obviously his night was over. So he was surprised. So obviously if he was surprised, then we weren't the only ones, right? So I think, they did a good job of making sure that game didn't get out of control, because obviously there was a lot of extracurricular kind of stuff happening after the whistle. And we know that there's a game coming up on Tuesday in Winnipeg. So these two teams kind of, that's all that is, right? It's kind of trying to get a little bit of an edge, trying to, get under the skin of the opponent, trying to give yourself, something to maybe carry into next game and give them something to think about.
Well, another takeaway from that, though, is that the Winnipeg Jets, another thing that I want to give them their flowers for this year is how disciplined they've been, right? We've talked about that. And like last game, the Mikey Esamont, Nino Niederreiter thing was kind of a good example of that, right? Where the Winnipeg Jets are able to kind of get under player skins. And, while I think they do have a lot of physical aggression, they don't take it too far and, shoot themselves in the foot too often by going to the box. This was probably one of the higher penalized Winnipeg Jets games that we've seen in a little while, where, the Kapari cross check and, like a couple things like that, where you could tell this Florida Panthers team was getting under their skin a little bit. And usually a huge asset of the Winnipeg Jets is how disciplined of hockey they play. I don't think either team was super disciplined tonight. The refs kind of did let them play a little bit. And there were some moments, especially near the end of the game, but it's one of those things that it happened. Pay attention to what happened. Look at what you did. Look at what happened. I'm not saying, they should be screaming their heads off and crying and saying how awful they did, but just take a look at what happens when you see the frustration kind of go up a little bit. You're a team that's been doing super well and you're facing some adversity for, quite frankly, what I consider to be the first time this season. Just keep an eye on it,
Sure, I hear you. Okay, Liz, without further ado, we got 5 goals to talk about, none from the Winnipeg Jets, but we're going to get into it right now in the Play Now game recap.
The Play Now game recap.
Okay, let's get into this goal. As far as I'm concerned, Maki Samoskevich, I might be mispronouncing his name, has to be one of the best names. His I guess real name is Matthew. Maki is a nickname similar to Ezzy, I guess. But it's Matthew Maki Samoskevich. It could be Samskevich. I'm going to say Samskevich. I'm going to go with Samskevich here.
Sure.
But
I like it.
In this particular goal, this was again talking about kind of the no call on the reverse hit by Jesper Boquist on Vladislav Nemesnikov. I don't know if you noticed this, but what starts this off is like there's a little bit of a pitchfork from Samskevich on Josh Morrissey, and that kind of makes him fall because it's a bit of a broken play. Right. And
absolutely it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like this is like a perfectly, zone entry with speed and there's like a tic-tac-toe passing play or anything like that. It's just kind of a broken play. And it's a nice pass from Thomas Nosek after Samskevich kind of pitchforks Josh Morrissey and he falls down here. He makes a nice little pass to AJ Greer, who gets it over to Gustav Forsling. And Dylan DeMello gets a piece of it and it ends up going off of Samskevich's body. So this wasn't a very pretty goal. It was kind of a broken play, but it was kind of a sign of things to come because not a lot of pretty goals tonight. There were a lot of kind of just like hardworking, go to the net type of, pucks going off of, backsides type of game.
Yeah, no, for sure. This one was, again, hockey is won and lost in chaos. If anyone's ever listened to me speak, I say that way too often. And this
you got
to
trademark that list.
Where is it a saying? I don't know. I've turned it into one if it's not. But this is an example, right? Like you said, Morrissey is out of position, pinches on that puck, is dealing with his own thing up there, which is fine. Morgan Barron is my question mark on this goal, right? Where is he? I feel like he misreads where that puck is going because all of the forwards are on the same side of the ice when that flying forward comes through. I guess I'm not even going to say his name, Mackie, because I'm not going to pronounce it as well as
Samskevich.
Right now.
We're going with Samskevich.
Samskevich, yeah, he's coming in on the wing there, and there's no one covering that flying player. And the Florida Panthers had possession for long enough that one of the Winnipeg Jets forwards should have jumped back on that and helped cover that in Morrissey's absence. So again, just one of those kind of chaotic goals that, tough on Hellebuyck. You're not expecting a puck to go off of a guy's shoulder or anything like that, but this is the kind of play I would show to the girls that I coach and say, this is why you go to the net, right? That's always what it is.
Well, you got to give a shout out to the team that you coach, Liz, right now. I didn't know that you coach hockey. I work at Hockey Manitoba, so thank you for being a coach.
My regime. So yeah.
What team are you coaching? What level?
I'm coaching U11 girls, so out in my local area here, and they know puck. They're pretty good. Like a couple of them have a pretty wicked shot. I'm having a lot of fun with them so far. So we're having a really good time. Did some post-game media last weekend for a local news story that's coming out. So we're having a really good time.
Okay, so it's St. Eustache and it's the Jets, right?
Yes, with an asterisk. We St. Eustache is implementing a new women's program that's in collaboration with a neighboring hockey association. So together we're called the Wolverines. No geotag associated with it. So St. Eustache Jets still exists for some of our co-ed teams that play just out of Stemma, the St. Eustache arena over there. But we are called the Wolverines for the girls, and we're purple. Wolverines. So I got my nails done for them for our upcoming hockey tournament this weekend. So they're going to be very excited.
Well, I work at Hockey Manitoba, so maybe we're going to have to do some, promoting your team.
I need to get my coaching too done. So.
Okay, yeah, get certified. The deadline's December 1st, so make sure that you get certified. But yeah, I wanted to get that shout out in there for you. But yeah, that's awesome that you're coaching. Coaches are
having lots of fun.
Yeah, they're integral. So that's awesome that you're off to a 4-0 start. And yeah, to your point, that was just that goal there was a lot. I don't know if you want to call it a breakdown in coverage. I did think Samskovich got away with one there by kind of taking the feet under from Josh Morrissey. But like you said, the fourth line was out there. Morgan Barron was a little bit out of position. So the Jets are down 1-0. And, it's late in the first period and the Panthers had a lot of pressure. And you kind of, thought that the Panthers were going to eventually score after Sam Reinhart had a good chance. I made a note here. And also, Ehlers, want to mention his 3 shots. We talked about that a little bit earlier at the beginning of the show, but Ehlers had 3 shots in that first period. Because, Liz, we have no Jets goals to talk about, that's why you take notes and you have something to, give Jets fans some positivity here. But Ehlers had that wraparound chance. And then I made a note here that Cole Perfetti had a nice pass from behind the net to Ehlers, and he had a good scoring chance on Sergei Bobrovsky. That was right after Samskovich had the first goal. So even though the Jets didn't score any goals in this game or in the first period, I wanted to mention that Ehlers, Perfetti, and Nemesnikov, they looked good. They were generating offense. Unfortunately, it didn't result in any goals, but I think you'd agree that line was noticeable and
oh yeah.
Probably
I don't know if you have your natural stat trick still pulled up. I don't have mine open. Did they give up any shots tonight? I don't know if there had any shots against that line.
I'd have to hold on. Give me a second.
I'm more of a money puck guy, so I don't know how natural stat trick works if they show that or not. But
yeah, I'm not quite sure how to look that up. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was a few shots. Like I think you would agree that the shot share was definitely in that line's favor tonight.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a Corsi Merchant kind of game for them, though. Like they had a couple of Nikolai Ehlers slap shots that looked pretty good and everything, and a couple of really nice Cole Perfetti passes that I noticed he had a couple of really, really awesome ones, but perimeter shots and, kind of carrying the puck around to the zone. But, it was good, but Nikolai Ehlers was the most exciting player on the ice by far for the Winnipeg Jets.
Sign him to 8 years, $8 million or $8.5 million
now.
We're not going to get into that. That's more of maybe when we have you on the Saturday morning show, we can get into that. But
how many hours do you have?
Yeah, exactly. No kidding. The way he's playing this year, like, yes, it's a contract year, but it should be his next contract should be with the Jets. Like, I don't understand how you're going to let a guy like that go. I realize that Gabe Vilardi's due for a raise and Neil Pionk and everything like that. There's other guys, but the salary cap is going out. So Jets, just figure it out. Listen, I want Ehlers to be re-signed. So Chevy, Larry Simmons, figure it out. But let's get into the second goal here. This is obviously the Nate Schmidt goal. And Liz, unfortunately, because we don't have any Jet goals, we're going to have to make this our...
The Seagram shot of the game.
The Seagram shot of the game is obviously brought to you by Seagram's. We got the Grey Cup, the Blue Bombers in the Grey Cup for the 5th year in a row. So make sure you visit your local liquor mart and pick up some Seagram's products. I recommend Fireball. It's what I drink every single day of the week. I wake up and I drink it. Obviously, I'm joking, but make sure you drink responsibly. Enjoy the Grey Cup. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit later in the show. But yeah, Seagram shot of the game. We're going to give it to Nate Schmidt here because there weren't any Jets goals as we already discussed. I mean, Liz, I'll let you kind of jump in here and break this goal down, but Sam Bennett starts this play off in his own zone, goes end to end. You've got Kyle Connor with the flyby. Gabe Vilardi's kind of, and I realized this was towards the end of a shift. Fine. But like Sam Bennett, just like he was noticeable again tonight too. And he goes end to end and obviously puts the backhand on Connor Hellebuck, and Nate Schmidt jumps up into the play. And, this was just, I don't know what else to say aside from Sam Bennett. There needed to be a body on him. Somebody needed to slow him down in that neutral zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the perfect shift that, I would keep in my portfolio if I ever had to go back to the Connor Scheifele-Vilardi line argument where, the Scott Arniel justification at the beginning of the season in training camp and everything was that this puck is extremely difficult to get the puck away from. Understood. Agreed. But look what happens when they do, right? This is a brutal shift end by Gabe Vilardi, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, he coasts all the way back on that player that could have been his. Yes, I think Neil Pionk does kind of misjudge where Nate Schmidt is on this goal a little bit. If you'll recall, he kind of pounds that rebound back.
Yep. Granted,
Pionk's probably not used to Connor Hellebuck giving up that rebound. That's typically a puck that Connor Hellebuck would swallow. But, this is hockey. Rebounds happen. They should happen. It's pretty typical goaltending. So I think Neil Pionk was a little bit off on that one, but Gabe Vilardi is the player that I want to call out on this specific goal.
No, you're 100% right. And even though it's towards the end of a shift, like he has multiple opportunities to at least put a somewhat of an effort into this. And, Neil Pionk, like you said, it's a bad rebound by Hellebuck, and Neil Pionk gets spun around and he doesn't kind of check his man. And Nate Schmidt, obviously, makes the good decision to follow up the play here and jump in from the blue line. But yeah, it was a weak back check. And like we said, like a flyby by Kyle Connor, just like this goal, I think kind of summed up the game in a way. It kind of illustrated, what was wrong with the Jets, like just not the attention to detail, not, that tight, defensive coverage that we're used to, like the back pressure and everything like that. Like, it's like Sam Bennett is a great hockey player. It's not like this is Sam Bennett's first rodeo. He's been in the NHL for a long time now. He's a Stanley Cup winner, like a lot of guys on the Panthers. And it was kind of like, why are you just watching him go end to end? And we saw that in the third period, remember, when Bennett absolutely posterized Neil Pionk. And again, I think Pionk has had a great year. He's top 5 in defenseman scoring right now. I just didn't think he had a sharp game overall.
Yeah, no, not his best, right? And we saw that in the Toronto game as well. Just not the best showing from him and his partner. It happens, but like you said, you can't pretend that this Neil Pionk that we've seen in the first 17 or whatever games of this season so far is the same Neil Pionk that we saw last season or the season before. Like, he definitely is playing better hockey, and that makes me very happy because I want this guy to succeed. And yeah, just not his best moment on that goal. It is what it is.
I agree with you 100%, Liz. I think, he's not going to make Team USA, but I think he's actually on the radar for Team USA.
Has to be at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, for sure. It's the kind of thing where there are so many players that have better legacies and better longer samples, but Four Nations Face-Off is a brief tournament in the middle of the season. You ride what's hot, right? When you're making that roster, you play good guys, and you have to be looking at them in some capacity right now.
Just like I think Team Canada might be looking at like a guy like Dylan Strome. Sorry to kind of go off tangent, but I think you're absolutely right. Like when you have or Sam Reinhart, like how many people thought Sam Reinhart would be on Team Canada's radar a couple of years ago, right? I guess the Four Nations tournament hasn't been, we didn't know about it for a couple of years, but you know what I'm saying? Sam Reinhart, I mean, he's gone from like a 30 goal scorer to a however many he had last year, 55 or however many goals. He had over 50 goals last year, right? So I agree with you. Like that's just unacceptable back checking from the Jets top line. let's get into the third goal here. This was possibly even uglier than the Nate Schmidt goal, and that's Evan Rodriguez's goal that makes it 3-0. This is and we kind of talked about it, and I made a note here. There was a turnover by Kyle Connor. He failed to clear the zone on this particular play, and the puck gets back to Aaron Ekblad. It's the Jets' top line out there again, and you've got 5 Jets back. 5 Jets are back there. I'm watching the replay right now. Alexander Barkov, he gets a shot at it. Evan Rodriguez gets a shot at it, and there's just no, you could say that the Jet and Scheifele's there, and he just doesn't get a body or whatever you want to call it, positioning on Rodriguez. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, playoff hockey. You always hear about that. The Jets. That's the reason why the Jets don't have success, because they're not physical, or they're not tough enough on pucks. Yeah, that is the case, I guess, if you want to simplify it down to that. But on this particular case, this is just an ugly goal with just there's no reason why the Panthers should score a goal when you have 5 guys back defending and it's 2-on-5, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where I have to catch myself sometimes, because I do sound like a little bit of a hypocrite. I love it when offensive players cheat for offense when the situations allow. Mark Scheifele tries to fly the zone a little bit too early, right? You said the Kyle Connor turnover here. Mark Scheifele is too far back, coasts in a little bit like he sometimes does, and like you said, he's there. That's the most frustrating part of this goal for me, is that he's there, and that's the type of goal. And I'm pretty sure they mentioned it on the broadcast, and I'd have to watch the clip again, but that's one of those look up to the heavens goals afterwards, because you're like, oh my god, how did I make that? How did I let that happen? Right? Because he was there, he came back, he made it back. It's Evan Rodriguez, he's there in front of the net, and that stick wide open. So bit of a tougher look for that line again. There was, near the end, you can see Kyle Connor doing a little bit of a fencing move, kind of swinging the stick a little bit too casually for my taste. And it's just one of those examples where you got to get that puck out. I don't care if it's a broken record, but when you have a little bit of a chance there to pop that thing out, even if it's a little bit less controlled than you might like, when the alternative is this Florida Panthers team that can collapse on pucks like this, getting another chance, you can't let them do that, because they're creating enough on their own. You don't need to be giving them more.
And I apologize, Liz. That was not a shorthanded goal. I was getting ahead of myself. That was the 4th goal. That was a 5-on-5 goal that Evan Rodriguez scored there. But yeah, it's just, you're right. Scheifele flies out, and then he has the opportunity to get some body positioning or get a stick or something. And that's got to be a frustrating goal for the team. And to me, like, a lot of people were pointing to the Barkov goal that we're going to get into next as kind of the goal that really sealed the deal. But it was almost this one for me, because this was just outworking your opponent. And sometimes, like, you coach hockey, and sometimes, you can point to, your team is just more skilled than the opposition. Sometimes you can just say, like, we outworked them. And that's hockey, right? Like, hockey is not a game in which you can just look at 2 teams on paper. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. And to me, this was a perfect example of, like, we talked about on the Nate Schmidt goal, where Sam Bennett it's like a Sunday skate, and nobody touches him through the neutral zone, and he just goes from end to end. Gabe Vilardi is happy just to let him skate by him. And, that's effort to me. That is complete effort. So on these 2 goals, the effort just isn't, it's not sufficient. Like, it just isn't. And that, Scott Arniel and the coaching staff, like, they're going to be all over their team on this. Like, this, to me, I agree with you, Liz. This was not the same type of loss as the Tampa Bay Lightning game. This was much worse. And I'm not saying that the Jets are going to go on like a 7-game losing streak or anything like that. I could easily see the Jets bouncing back and beating the Panthers like 6-2 on Tuesday or something like that.
Yeah,
this was by far the worst game of the year for the Jets. And I think you tip your hat to the Panthers, because they're the defending Cup champs for a reason. But you also have to say that, like, this just wasn't the Jets' night, and they have to kind of look at themselves in the mirror and say, okay, we're still 15-3 here, but that was a stinker. So let's get into the 4th goal by Alexander Barkov. This is when Aaron Ekblad took the minor, and this is kind of when things really got out of control. And, like, there's a turnover in the Jets zone, and okay, so that's one thing. But the 2-on-1, I think, is played okay by Josh Morrissey. But what happens is Sam Reinhart hits the crossbar, and then Josh Morrissey kind of just like he gets stunned, and it's easy for me to say that, right? Like watching the game at home, but it was kind of just a weird case where, Morrissey was there similar to the way Scheifele was there on Rodriguez, and he just doesn't tie him up. So obviously Barkov, does a great job of passing it over and jumping on the rebound. But again, like, can we just say like it was one step behind, right? Like it was just all of these goals, one step behind, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think all things considered, of the 5 goals tonight, this is probably the one that I am the least concerned about, in the sense of like, what an anomaly. Shorthanded break. Josh Morrissey plays it pretty well. Brutal crossbar. Another goal off of a body part that's not a stick. Like it's kind of just one of those that if this happened in any other game, I wouldn't think too much of it. The fact that it happened in a game where the Jets were constantly, like we've been saying, a step behind and everything, it's like, come on, guys. Come on. Like, this is supposed to be your one chance. Like we talked about earlier. You have the 41% power play or whatever it is after the New York game. I haven't checked since, after the Tampa game. It's like, man, like that sucks. But when I look at goals and when they happen and stuff like that, I always try and think about them in the sense of how likely is this situation to be replicated, and will you manage it better when that situation arises? The replicability, if that's a word, of this goal is extremely low. It happens.
It's a word now.
But it is a word now. I've decided. Yeah, no, exactly. But not their best. But yeah, it's one of those things where you're not in the right mindset when you're on the power play to be. When you think about the defense on the power play, you're thinking about, going back and getting that puck, kind of managing the breakout passes and stuff like that. This was legitimate defense that they had to play, and I don't think any of their brains were as sharp as they should have been tonight. And I think in that particular situation, when they were all kind of focused in and locked in on offense, it just not a pretty look, but life goes on, the world keeps spinning kind of thing.
Absolutely. And just an update from Joe from Winnipeg. He's watching the Moose game for us. Moose leading 4-2 on a Dominic Toninato breakaway. Hey. So the Jets might have lost tonight, but the Moose are up 4-2. They're playing I believe they're playing the Chicago Wolves tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Yeah, so good to see the local AHL club winning. So we've got one more goal to talk about here, and that is the Panthers' 5th goal, and it is, look who it is. It's our old friend Dmitry Kulikov, who used to play defense for the Winnipeg Jets. And Dmitry, speaking of goals that aren't that great, Dmitry Kulikov scores here. And again, it's just, him coming in off of the blue line, the Panthers putting the puck on the net, and Dmitry Kulikov kind of cleans up the garbage, and it goes off of his body. Alexander Barkov picks up another point. What did you see on this goal? Because obviously this game was well out of hand at that point.
Well, exactly, and couldn't say that loud enough. It was kind of a lost cause at this point, but really good job by Dmitry Kulikov to see the open ice on that 4-on-4, right? Like, I think the 4-on-4 is a situation where you can really read into, everyone can groan people's hockey sense, right? When you're watching how they manage these types of situations, and Dmitry Kulikov comes in and manages this pretty well. I feel like Lowry looked a scooch bit confused off in this situation. Like, it wasn't, again, anybody's best. Both him and Cal Connor out there. And I think when those players are defending, whether it's a penalty kill or a 4-on-4, Adam Lowry, in my opinion, likely has to think a little bit more defensively than, sure. He always thinks that way. But, when you're out with Cal Connor in a situation like this, you're like, hey, buddy, you can jump on these. I'll hang back. He does hang back, and he does a fine job. But it's the Jets, I think, had kind of already lost this one, and he's back. But it's one of those situations where when a guy's frustrated, sometimes you move away a little bit from the technique and whatnot. You don't lift the stick nice and gracefully. You kind of give him a shove, and, giving him the shove left his stick wide open, kind of similarly to the goal that Scheifele let happen with Evan Rodriguez. It was just one of those, good job by Kulikov to get into that back post position there. Lowry, tie up that stick next time, buddy.
Sure.
Game's over. Oh,
no,
well.
I think, no, but honestly, Liz, I mean, hockey, you break it down really well. Like this, again, this is, to me, attention to detail and effort. Like that's what a lot of these goals, like, these are not pretty goals, right? Like we talked about it. What does this go off of Kulikov's wrist? Like, I don't know. Does it go off of his chest? Like, Barkov just puts it on net, and Kulikov goes to the net. And also, Barkov has way too much time to walk in there. And like you said, if Lowry gets a little bit more on him, gets a stick on him, ties the stick up, gets a little bit better body positioning, it most likely hits him and goes into the corner, right? Like, it was just, to me, too loose on the defensive coverage. And that's just,
like, I don't know why Kyle Connor on that one is kind of slowly creeping up to the other defenseman when one of the guys, you know, and it's like you said, it's Barkov of all people is coming in hot down the wing there. And like, there's options. Like, why are you kind of coasting up in the middle there? At least try and like block the shot or something. I don't really, but again, yeah, I don't know how locked in everybody was at this point, which is something I do kind of want to bring up ever so slightly, is just that, you know, for example, in the Dallas game that the Winnipeg Jets played so well on Saturday, I was like, oh, you know what? It's fine. That third period wasn't their best. Dallas had some good pushback. Kudos to them. Did not see the reciprocal of that in tonight's game when the Winnipeg Jets were the team down. Florida kept their foot on the gas, and the Winnipeg Jets just seemed to get frustrated as opposed to get fired up, which is not super encouraging to me. So these last 2 goals in particular are kind of a symptom of that.
yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, you know, you made a very astute point on, I'm not sure if it was Twitter or Blue Sky. I follow you on both lists, and you know, obviously there's big changes happening in social media, because this was like the week of the jump to Blue Sky, right? Like Dave Minuk has been on Blue Sky for like, I don't know, I don't want to say a year, but he's probably been on Blue Sky for like 6 months, 8 months, and he's been talking about it. And I'm like, I can't handle any more social media. But obviously,
right?
Can anybody handle Twitter anymore? Like, what is Twitter? Like, I think everybody's jumping ship. It's just out of control. Elon, I think, has gone too far. He's gone mad. But obviously, the comment I'm talking about is when you talked about the mental toughness, right? After the Tampa Bay loss, you said that, you know, with the Jets, we've seen the skill, the power play. Everybody knows what they can do, but it was just, we wanted to see how mentally tough they were. And I think, you know, you could just take that tweet list and kind of copy and paste it and apply it to the game on Tuesday, right? Because we're going to have to see how the Jets bounce back. This is the first adversity that they've had all year long, right? With these 2 losses. So it's going to be, I think, a fascinating game at home. We know the Jets, you know, have only lost the 1 game at home so far this year. And, you know, they've been very good and solid. So that's the bet. That's the Play Now game recap brought to you by Play Now. And we want to say a shout out to our friends at Play Now. Learn to bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply, 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. We're going to head to break here. We're going to pay some bills, then we're going to come back, get final thoughts. We'll maybe touch on the Grey Cup a little bit, give our predictions. Obviously, we're both going with the Bombers, but just hang tight, lists, and we're going to head to break and stick with us. We'll be right back.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. It's the Ezzy and Liss experience. Dave Minuk, Drew Mandel have the night off. Hopefully they're having a great time. We've had a great time on tonight's Illegal Curve post-game show. We're happy that everyone has joined us. Obviously, not the result Jets fans wanted. 5-0. The Jets lose to the Florida Panthers in Southern Florida. It's the Jets' first losing streak of the year, Liz. It's kind of, it's weird. It's, we were talking about it a little bit before we went live, right before the show started. Sometimes it's easier to talk about losses. Oftentimes it is easier to talk about losses than it is wins, but it's also kind of absurd that we're surprised that the Jets have lost 2 games in a row. We're 18 games into the season here, and this is the first time the Jets have lost 2 games in a row. So I think that just shows you how crazy the start has been. Like I said on this morning show, the Jets could lose on Tuesday. They could lose to Pittsburgh and Nashville, and it's still a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I'm sure everyone and their mother has talked about this when talking about the Jets' success this year compared to other winning streaks we've seen from them that have looked similar in the past, is that, when I think of the Winnipeg Jets and kind of the 3 areas for any hockey team, frankly, that, win or lose championships, seasons, what makes a good team, it's, the skill and the personnel, the mental toughness that we talked about, and then also the agility and decision-making, right? So when things go wrong, how do they adapt? How do they kind of manage that situation? Just kind of came up with that 3-pronged approach right now. I'm going to have to refine that a little bit. But with the Winnipeg Jets in the past, wasn't sure skill-wise. I believe they have the skill this time. I believe they have the personnel this time. And decision-making and agility is something that I think they struggled with in the playoffs last year. And we've watched them use that to their advantage this year, shake up some lines, manage the special teams really well, and adjust when things aren't going super well. So that's what I'm looking for, with this losing streak, as we'll call it. It's a pretty soft title for or soft result for a losing streak. This isn't anything like what we saw from them in March last year, thank goodness. But it'll be interesting to see if that agility and that decision making to kind of adapt to these situations that they find themselves in where they are not the dominant team kind of lead to that success that I know they're looking for. And if they have, like we said, the mental toughness to kind of deal with that, that's a lot more speculative. We don't really know what's going on in these players' heads. We don't know the conversations that are going on behind closed doors, but we can watch in real time what happens in the game and how they adjust to the adversity that comes their way.
Absolutely. And they're going to have to make adjustments because this Jets team was not the Jets didn't look like themselves against Tampa Bay, but they really didn't look like themselves against the Florida Panthers. Uncharacteristic penalties. Obviously, we talked about Vlad Nemesnikov losing his temper, and rightfully so. I'm with you. Now, the more that I think about it and I've looked at the replay, I think that should have been an interference penalty on Jesper Boquist. Obviously, he was fired up because he was the victim of a Neil Pionk hip check. I saw you post on X/Twitter about that. I agree with you. Like the Neil Pionk hip check is becoming like one of the things that he can pull out of his repertoire, once out of every 5 or 10 games. So that was a clean hit. And obviously we talked about Scheifele and Ekblad dropped the gloves. That was not a good fight, but it was somehow better than the Paul Tyson fight. I'm not sure.
I saw that. That was a good tweet too. That was a good tweet. Man, oh man. What a
thank you, Liz.
disappointing
Look, every once in a while, right? I throw out 10 tweets and 1 out of every 10 is good, right? But I mean, this game just got out of control, and we talked about the Dmitry Kulikov goal that just kind of added insult to injury. I know this is a Jets post-game show, but I want to now focus on the Bombers and the Argos because obviously this is the 5th year in a row the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to the Grey Cup. I know you're a big Bombers fan, as am I. Drew and I actually had season tickets for a couple of years back in the day. We can't handle each other anymore. We don't really like to talk outside of a legal curve. I always say that. I hope people don't actually think that I'm being serious when I say that. But let's maybe get into predictions. What do you think the score is going to be? Obviously, we're going with the Bombers here and Mr. MOP Brady Oliveira, but are you thinking it's going to be a little on the lower scoring side? Because we know Toronto has had a lot of success shutting down the Bombers offense this year.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's why I struggle with football. And anyone, if you've ever listened to me speak about the Bombers, I say the same thing every time. I struggle with football because in hockey, you watch the set plays, you know what's supposed to happen, then you watch the chaos ensue, and then you see how people react. In football, the play dies every 5 seconds. I'm like, whose decision was that? Did the offensive coordinator screw that up? Did the quarterback screw that up? Did the receiver screw that up? I can't tell. I don't know. So I watch, and from my eyes, last game, Kenny Lawler and Brady Oliveira were on fire, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. Like you said, Toronto has managed the Winnipeg Blue Bombers really well this year, so it'll be interesting to see if they diversify their options, if they put a really good hit on Kenny Lawler, for example, and he's not a viable target the way the Bombers want him to be, how they are able to adjust. But I'm not going low scoring. I think this Bombers team has a fire lit under their bellies. They know that a couple of their core vets who have been part of this huge, incredible, impressive run these past few years are kind of on their way out. We have Big Hill, Jefferson, who could be nearing the end of their careers, Caleros as well. I think this team puts it all out there tomorrow, and I'm going to go with like a 35-21. That's
okay.
That's
okay. I like it. They win by a couple
with
touchdowns.
2 Kenny Lawler touchdowns.
Okay, 2 Kenny. Yeah, well, Kenny Lawler is one of the best receivers in the league, and I like what you said about the Bombers having a fire under their belly. I absolutely think the Bombers are winning this game. And yes, we're biased. We're Bombers fans. We're proud Manitobans. But yeah, 35-21. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit lower scoring. I'm going to go 30-22. I'm not exactly sure how I got there. If there's an extra point or something like that, or
safety,
a field goal. Yeah, safety. But I'm going to go 30-22. But I don't think it's going to be as low scoring as some people are predicting. But I think the Bombers are absolutely going to win. I think Brady Oliveira is going to have an awesome game. We know what he can do. Was it even really close for the MOP this year? I don't know how close it was. I don't follow the other teams as much as I follow the Bombers, but Brady Oliveira is the man. I have a lot of confidence that he's going to step up. And Zach Caleros, obviously, we know that he's done this. He's won 2 Grey Cups. He's the man. So I think the Bombers are going to win. So we'll see who's a little bit closer, Liz. But I want to thank you so much for stepping up in the absence of the normal host, Drew Mandel, and my confidant, Dave Manuk, who are both taking the night off. I really appreciate this. And the thing is, Liz, there's a problem, though. You did such a good job. We're going to have you on again. We're going to have you on the Saturday morning show once. We're going to have you on a post-game show if you're willing to add or join us. And I want to give Liz another shout out for the great job that she does on the Winnipeg Sports Talk Sunday Live and the deep dives. Because I think that you guys started, if I'm not mistaken, did you guys start with Colby Barlow?
Yes.
Yeah, so Colby Barlow was the first one that you guys did, and I think you guys are about a half dozen in, right? I know that you guys did Braden Yeager, Brad Lambert, if I'm not mistaken.
You did your homework. Yeah, absolutely. And then a couple of Jets players as well. So
look, Liz, there's a reason why I think I've told you this, or I told Connor this and Stoller this, Jacob Stoller, who writes for Sportsnet. You guys are the young guns of Winnipeg sports media. Like, we're old guys. We've been doing the Illegal Curve show for 16 years now. You guys are the young guns, and you guys have made a name for yourself because, first off, you're hilarious on social media, but you know your hockey, and so does Jacob, and so does Connor. Well, Connor is just, he's a superstar. There's not enough time to talk about all the good stuff that Connor's doing with Illegal Curve and Winnipeg Sports Talk and Level Flight podcast. But I thank you for joining us today. And we'll have to have you back on. And I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, Play Now, the presenting sponsor of this show, Seagram's, and City Place. We're going to be at City Place. I'm not sure if I'm going to be there for sure, but Drew and Dave will definitely be there. City Place Tuesday for the pregame show. I think we're starting that at noon. The Jets and Panthers, the rematch. And then also, Liz, I'm not sure what you're doing next Friday night, but we're going to be at Boston Pizza on Taylor for the Jets Penguins game. We're going to be doing the Illegal Curve watch party / post-game show. So if you're in the neighborhood and you're looking for a place to watch the Jets Penguins game, that's for you and all of the people watching right now. You should come by Boston Pizza Taylor and check out the Jets Penguins game and then stick around for the post-game show.
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, I have a hockey tournament to attend to. I'll be out in Brandon for a AAHF sanctioned tournament, which I'm really excited about this weekend. So I will not be in attendance. So everyone who's here in the chat, thank you so much for being here. You guys will have to make up for it and show up and attend in my honor.
All right, sounds good. We're gonna miss you there, but maybe we're doing a show every month, so we'll get you at Boston Pizza one of these shows, Liz, when you're not coaching hockey or you're not doing stuff for Winnipeg Sports Talk. So Liz Hood, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching and for everybody who's listened on the podcast. The Winnipeg Jets are defeated 5-0 by the Florida Panthers. The Jets have now lost 2 games in a row, but the good thing is the Winnipeg Jets are going to get a chance for redemption on Tuesday night when the Florida Panthers come back into town when the Jets kick off their homestand. So thanks everyone for listening. Go Bombers.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.